views and opinions expressed do not necessarily reflect those of Access Fort Wayne, the Allen County Public Library, or any other supporting groups. If you'd like to produce a show, call us at 260-421-1250.
Let me be your lighthouse so I can show you the way. Let me be your shining light, I'll keep you from drifting away. I'm the one that makes you try when.
This is Patty Hunter, Patty's Page. Welcome to my show. Our special guest is Steven Hough.
Close enough. Steven Hough. That's okay.
Hi.
That's
Ruff,
all right. Yes,
Steven
ma'am.
Ruff of Blue H.E.L.P. They honor, educate, lead, and prevent. Well, that's a good motto right there, isn't it?
Thank you. Yes, ma'am.
So what does Blue H.E.L.P. mean?
Well, Blue H.E.L.P. was, it actually is there for our first responder community. It is provided to let them know that there's assistance out there, especially if they're having problems with mental health concerns or issues that they may face along their time in the job. I can tell you from personal experience that the Blue H.E.L.P. was started at a time when my partner and I realized after we were involved in the shooting that there was very little help when it came to looking at our agencies and their ability, not necessarily a downfall to them. However, they just weren't aware of how to deal with mental health trauma. And that's where Blue H.E.L.P. came from. In about 2015, we were able to get Blue H.E.L.P. started. Karen Solomon was instrumental in that. She is a blogger and an author. Her and the other co-founder, Jeff McGill, they both wrote a book called The Price They Pay.
Oh.
And Blue H.E.L.P. is really there to help folks, number one, get over that stigma of mental health within the first responder community. And number two, it's there to provide assistance if they need it.
Is it a nonprofit?
It is a nonprofit organization. Yes, ma'am.
So who helps to sponsor you? You get grants or?
Oh yeah, we've got grants. We've got sponsorships from different corporations. We've sponsored with Motorola. We've looked at sponsoring with Taser Corporation. We rely, majority of our money comes from individual donors that see the value in what we're trying to provide to our law enforcement, corrections, fire, and EMS communities, and they're thankfully there to help us along so we can continue that mission.
So it's 5 years, eh?
Yes, ma'am. 5 years, 5 years strong. That's when we started the database, and that's right. There you go. That's when we started our database collection for law enforcement suicides, because we realized that, hey, the law enforcement suicide is one of those areas that just was not being taken care of. We know that when officers get injured, they get some assistance, they get the assistance they need. The agency steps up and makes sure that the family is got some sort of, is monetarily secure, as well as if there's any assistance for the family needing any type of counseling or anything like that. But when we deal with law enforcement suicides, it's not there.
I wonder why.
I don't think it was just one of those things that was pushed to the back. All of us first responders are all we're all alpha personalities, right? We want to take control of a situation, and when we lose control, especially of ourselves, we don't like to tell people that.
Do they think it's a weakness or something?
Absolutely. And it's been that way. The culture has been that way for even beyond our times, and even all the way back to if you take a look back in history, you can track this all the way back to ancient Greek times.
Mhm.
There were plays written about it. There were books written about it where these guys would come back and they would tell their stories, or they were damaged from the effects of wartime.
War.
So this is nothing new.
So just like the people
Pardon.
from the military and all, they go through the same thing.
Yes, ma'am. Absolutely. You know, we don't, we try and stay away from saying we are uh, just like the military. However, we definitely parallel the military
Mhm.
in our, in number one, in our ranks, number two, in our structures of our agencies and whatnot. And number three, you know, we deal with this stuff on a daily basis. So we definitely, as far as law enforcement is concerned, we definitely need that ability to have an outlet to talk to people. We see a lot of different things throughout a 20-year career. Myself, I was shot 3 times. I got
Oh,
shot in the face 1 time. So these things, we see accumulative stress over a period of a career, or one critical incident such as mine, which will send
mm.
us, you know, over that edge, so to speak. So we definitely understand, my partner and I definitely understand, hey, look, there's a need, a requirement for that to be out there. And that's what Blue Help is.
Do you have counselors, a psychiatrist?
What we have, we don't have any that are per se on staff, but what we do have is we have a website. It's firsthelp.net. And basically it's a 7-step process. It's anonymous. So you could go on that website if you're having problems or you're having a hard time coping with some things. You can put in your zip code in the United States and it's talk about the different things that you're experiencing right now.
Mhm.
And then from there, we can actually line you up with different people within the state or near the area where you're at. So you could immediately get that help.
So are you the whole nation or just one state or?
No, ma'am, we are nationwide. We've done training nationwide. We just opened Heroes Memorial Park down in Texas. Karen lives up in Massachusetts. I currently am residing in Florida. So we are all over the place. We've got board members nationwide. Like I said, we've done training nationwide. And, you know, sooner or later, we would love to see individual chapters go state to state.
I wish you were in Canada. That's where I'm from.
Yes, ma'am.
You live up there as well. I don't know if they have anything similar to
Uh,
what you.
they have Badge of Life.
Oh, did you?
Canada, yes, ma'am. Badge of Life Canada is up in your neck of the woods. So I don't know if they're still tracking suicides, or if they're tracking suicides for Canadian officers. But that's something you can definitely reach out to them and discuss with them. I think it's badgeoflifecanada.org or .ca, I think.
We're here in Fort Wayne, Indiana. We're
Oh,
from
okay.
Toronto itself.
Ah, I see. Okay, very good, very good. Outstanding.
Outstanding indeed. Where are you? Where do you have a branch here in Fort Wayne?
No, ma'am. We're currently working on a plan to get, like I said, a plan to get some statewide chapters rolling. But at this point, we don't have any. So it's primarily a single entity organization right now, where we just, if people have questions or concerns, they can email us. They can hit us up on the website, social media. They can hit us up on social media. All of those things, and we're fairly quick to respond.
Because we have a lot of shootings here almost every
Yes,
night.
yes, ma'am.
Gangs, or whatever,
Yes, ma'am.
unfortunately. Especially when there was rioting and that.
Absolutely. It's definitely a different climate right now.
It is. It's too. It better not be the norm right now. I hope not.
Yeah, I hope not either. I'm hoping hopefully once we get past this election time, we'll see some quieting down.
Well, I hope so. Throughout the nation, is there a large number of suicides in
Well,
the
there's
post?
with law enforcement, and those are the numbers we primarily track. We track law enforcement, we track corrections officers. We'll track federal officers.
Mhm.
So far we're sitting at about 125, 130 suicides this year. Last year it was we're up to 235 for last year.
Mhm.
So the number definitely outweighs the officers that are being killed feloniously. So if they're being killed in the line of duty, like either by gunfire or an assailant attacks them and kills them, or our suicides are outnumbering uh, that number quite a bit. So we don't believe that the number of suicides are growing, but we believe that the number of people reporting those suicides are
Mhm.
growing. In other words, they're trying to make that stigma. They're trying to lessen the stigma. So
Break it.
obviously,
Yeah.
the only way we can do that is by knowledge, putting that out there, saying, hey, look, we recognize there's an issue, that we recognize the need for some mental health training and resiliency training. And that's what we're there for. And that's what we're trying to do as a organization.
We're trying to tell the nation that police officers are human as well. They're not machines or, automatic, whatever. They do have emotions, and
Yes, ma'am.
they do get affected by violence themselves.
Absolutely. We're not, it's like I say, when I talk to a lot of people, hey, I put my pants on one leg at a time, just like you do.
Right.
When I take my Superman suit off, when I get home, I've got the same financial problems you do at home. I have the same family concerns I have as you as at home. So just because of the profession, it doesn't mean that we're any different than anybody else out there.
No, we're all human.
Absolutely. Yes, ma'am. So it's just one of those things that, bringing that to the forefront and bringing that to the civilian community on the opposite side of law enforcement. I think it is helping make that turn to understand that mental health stigma, that, hey, look, people think that just because we're law enforcement, we're some super duper person. No, we're just like
Not
you.
super soldiers or whatever.
That's right.
What are the names of other organizations that are peer support help groups?
So I can tell you that we do training with, we have the peer support couple down in Texas.
Mhm.
Those guys do, Javier and his wife do wonderful things down there in Texas. They travel across the United States as well. COPS has just started up its own branch to deal with law enforcement suicide. However, it's in its infancy. So, and there's a ton of other places out there that will that will assist if needed. So, I mean, we're glad to see that Blue H.E.L.P was able to kind of lead the way in that, and a bunch of other individuals, other entities have got on board with it.
Because we are in need of you guys, as well as surrounding Indiana, Indianapolis and stuff. Every little town could use someone.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
There's
And
a lot of gangs.
yes, ma'am.
You in Chicago?
Am I in Chicago?
No, your
Oh,
branch. I mean,
no, ma'am. We're based out of Massachusetts.
Massachusetts.
Yes, ma'am. So we're actually, that's where we're based out of. And like I said, our board members are literally from Massachusetts all the way over to California. So
Wow. Oh, look at California over there. Is it basically the younger members or the older officers that are affected by mental health issues with
we
what's going on?
see a lot of both. We see retired officers who are committing suicide by a good amount, and we see younger officers, usually within that first 5 years, that really have that difficult time. Obviously, our retired guys, when they leave, they lose that sense of purpose, they lose that sense of worth, and that's one of the things that that we try and concentrate on as well. That they need to understand that this is a normal thing, a normal process to go through, and we just want to help them get through it. And then our younger guys, they come in expecting basically to save the world, you know, to be able to do great things. And then when the realization hits
That's right.
and those thoughts of grandeur go away, sometimes they have a hard time dealing with that. So we have a pretty good mix of retired as well as new officers that are unfortunately that are committing suicides.
Is there any way of screening mentally your cadets before they become police officers?
Yes, they have they actually have to go through at the majority of departments. I don't want to say all, but because keep in mind we're talking about 18,000 different departments in the United States.
Wow.
So they have like our agency where I work at in Northwest Florida, they actually will do a psychological evaluation prior to coming onto the basically getting hired. So I know some academies are pushing to install that segment of the hiring process, that psychological evaluation into the actual academy class prior to them starting the academy, so that maybe we could start looking at those things. And I know training also occurs within our academies so that these young guys and gals coming in can start to understand, hey, look, there's going to be some things that are going to affect you, and this is how we're going to deal with it.
I'm
So,
glad you guys are there because really the pressure, constant hyper pressure
yes,
is
yes,
very,
ma'am.
yeah.
That hypervigilance will get, it will wear you down. There's no doubt about it. And especially in areas where, like you were talking about Chicago, maybe in the larger metropolitan areas, Atlanta, Chicago, New York, those kinds of things, where that hypervigilance is there to a greater extent than, let's say, in a smaller community or a smaller department. So officers need to be aware of that. You know, living in that condition yellow or that condition red uh, is hard on the body. It's taxing on the body and it's taxing on the mind.
So we need special education, like you said.
Yes, ma'am. Absolutely. And it's coming. It's slowly getting there. We're starting to see legislation that is moving forward with making the FBI track suicides. So we're starting to see the evolution, if you will, of people understanding there is a problem or an issue that arises with the positions that we hold, the profession that we do. So these things are good though. I mean, these are things that we've wanted, and that's what Blue Help has been after is, hey, look, we need this recognized and we need to press forward with it and get these guys help.
Should be exposed, this not being able to show emotions, saying it is normal to show emotions. You know, we're
Yes,
not
ma'am.
rigid. We can't be rigid. We're humans. And we
That's
are
right.
affected by riots, killings, people, especially children, who get injured or kidnapped, whatever.
Absolutely. I mean, and you see that on a weekly basis, or in some places you may see it on a daily basis. And you see that for 5, 10, 15, 20 years at a time. It's
Yeah.
going to take its toll.
As they've raised in the ranks, doesn't matter what rank you are, if you can't handle it, you know, then that's why we need you guys in this nation of ours, United States, you know.
Well, fortunately, what we are seeing is we're seeing those younger officers who are literally, they're more in touch with their personal well-being than probably generations prior. I would say they're more in touch than any other generation that I'm aware of. So when these guys come up through the ranks, they will understand that.
Yeah.
There's going to be a changing of the guard where the newer generations start becoming your supervisors, start becoming your command staff, your administrators. And I think
Because in
that's where
any
you're,
job, really.
yes, yes. And I think that's where you're going to see the change, the instrumental change occur, is when those younger guys get up into those positions of authority and they go, hey, look, this is something that we need to have our officers understand and provide assistance for.
To prevent suicide, you're helping the whole family, not just the one officer.
It affect,
Yeah.
yes, ma'am. And when we talk about that, we talk about that ripple effect. We talk about how not only it affects officers close to the individual officer that committed suicide, it affects the family members, it affects friends,
Mhm.
it affects people that you don't even realize that it would affect.
And other cops too.
Other cops, civilians, other civilians. When I got shot and the letters came pouring in, people I didn't even know were sending me letters. People that I'd run into and just in passing say hello to at that worked at like Home Depot or worked at Lowe's or worked in the grocery store. You know, when I would go back and talk with them or see them, you could see the anguish on their face. You could see, even though I was alive and well, they still looked at me like, oh my gosh, you know, you got
Feel your
shot.
pain.
Yeah. So it's just one of those things that ripple effect is so far and wide. And that's one of the things that, for lack of a better term, it really kind of fascinated us when we went through it. We saw this ripple effect, and we're like, "Wow, this is so many other people are affected." Other
But
than,
without you guys, we are not protected.
yes, ma'am.
You're like first responders,
Yes, ma'am. Absolutely.
and we respect you, man.
Well, we thank you for that. So, and that's, you know, and being on that front line, this is where we see. This is what people have a hard time understanding is, you know, these, and not just law enforcement. I mean, your firefighters, they go to the wrecks. They're the ones that extract people out of vehicles. They're the ones that come into your houses and try and save loved ones that may have had a medical emergency of some type. So we're seeing that everybody is starting to kind of understand that, hey, look, this is, you know, this is a bigger deal than what's on TV.
We're becoming more aware of the society of what's happening out there.
Yes, ma'am.
And
Never has a society been more connected than it is now. Between social media, between people filming everything they see on the streets, you know, we as a society uh, are basically at an information overload at this point. I mean, we continuously get feeds. If you follow Twitter, if you follow any type of social media, it's always there. So I think that it's really becoming to the forefront because of that. I mean, we're seeing a lot of things going on that we wouldn't have seen 10 years ago.
this with the rioting and looting and burning, how do the police officers protect the people as well as themselves from these aggressors?
And you know, that is such a unique question in itself, because in different areas, officers are going to be governed by different rules, different policies, different regulations. So there really has to be, as far as protecting their families and protecting themselves, there has to be that ability to have that disconnect. When you get done at the end of the day, you've got to be able to take, you know, some time either for yourself or go right into your family time, but you've got to decompress. You've got to be able to say, hey, look, maybe sit down with your wife or
Talk it up.
significant other
Yeah.
and say, hey, this is what's happened. You know, this is what happened today. I had to tase a bunch of Antifa protesters or whatever. So this is just something that needs to be done when we deal with our, especially in this climate.
So especially with large crowds that are rioting, uh, how should the police be taught how to handle this?
Well, and again, this is one of those things. I think the majority of police are taught exactly how they are supposed to handle it, and
Yeah.
they handle it accordingly and appropriately.
How do you
The
see society then nowadays? Is it getting more confusing? Uh, you know,
Well, and if I'm understanding you right, you know, society is just like in any time in our past, society is growing, society is evolving.
yeah.
And what we see with, keep in mind what we're seeing with all these protests and all this is a very, very small, a very minuscule amount of what society is really doing. The majority of society is going on with their lives just
Yeah.
as we would normally would.
Yeah.
So the fact that mainstream media and social media want to report on, obviously they need to, because that's their bread and butter. That's how they make their money. But I would venture to say, I would very much speculate that the majority of law enforcement is going on about its day-to-day business just as it would every other day.
Except when you got these little glitches of riots or.
Yes, ma'am. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Except for in those spots, the majority of the country is moving along as it normally does. So
Fires here and there, you have to quench them out, the
yes,
best
ma'am.
way you can without hurting yourselves or anyone else. I was going to say, how can the community reach out to you or you reach out to them so you can have a bond with each other so you can rely on each other?
Well, as a matter of fact, we have a lot of volunteers that come forward to help us move that mission forward. We've done walks, suicide prevention walks.
Oh, yeah.
We've, like I said, the park has opened up. The bridge was just renamed a Heroes Memorial Bridge down there in Texas.
Right.
So there's a lot of different things that are going on behind the scenes that we know our communities are starting to reach out to us and go, hey, we want to be a part of this. We want to hold that walk, or we want to do a fundraiser, or whatever the case may be.
Yeah.
So the word is definitely getting out.
Show your human self, right?
Absolutely. Yes, ma'am.
Then they can realize, hey, they're like us.
That's right. That's
Very
right.
bad.
Every day, just like you.
So, what would you like to share with my audience to encourage both sides, the police and the civilians?
Well, I would just, if I could finish up by saying, Blue H.E.L.P is there to help our first responders. And we can't do it alone. We need the help of the community. We need the help of those family members and those friends, especially if they know of an officer or someone who is hurting,
Yeah.
who is having a hard time coping with the stressors of the job. Reach out to us. Reach out to firsthelp.net and get out there and actually let us know that somebody needs assistance. As we talked about several different times here today, we're just like you guys. We have the same problems, the same concerns, the same things. We take our kids to school just like you do. So it's important for the communities to understand, support your officers. That's probably one of the biggest things that I can put out there. There's so much negative press going on right now. Just if you see an officer pumping gas, just tell them, hey, thank you for what you do. If you see a firefighter, thank you for taking care of us. That is going to lift spirits more than you guys will ever know.
That's cool. I like that. Well, I'm glad I have met you, Steven.
It's a pleasure. I appreciate you having me on your show. So
this is Patty Hunter of Patty's Page, and you can see me because of the light. We have just had a special guest from Blue H.E.L.P, Steven Hough.
Yep, you got it.
Anyways, thank you so much.
Thank you.
See you next week. Thank you. God bless. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Godspeed, my love, until we meet again. You're always in my heart and every dream. Don't let this time apart give in to all our fears. God will keep us close from up above. So until we meet again, Godspeed, my love. God is with us always.